I'm a member of the board and a volunteer here at 40 Plus. I'm also a 40 Plus graduate in 2015. But in my day life, my professional life, I'm an association exec. I build and lead organizations that serve members. And I'm looking for an opportunity to do that again. Thank you all for coming. For any of you, is anybody here at 40 Plus for the first time? Higher, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-ish. Great. Thank you very much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed tonight's program. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the rest of 40 Plus and then introduce our special guest. So you're participating tonight in our Networking with Purpose events, which are monthly programs designed to engage not only active job seekers, but those in the working community, because of course that helps us improve the networking environment. Our programs here in the evening are designed to share information about a topic in professional development, leadership, or another part of the search process. So these are held monthly here in our facilities at our guests in the Foundation Center. We're very happy to be here. And so tell your friends, it's an opportunity to join and learn more about a topic in leadership and professional development. In addition, we have free programs every Monday morning right here at 10 o'clock from about 10 to 12. And those programs take on one of two dimensions. Either an update on a tactical part of the search process, including those issues that come up in search that aren't tactical in nature. They're more emotional. How do you deal with stress? How do you deal with your finances? How do you talk about being in transition or unemployed or however we want to describe it, to your friends, to your family, to your colleagues or former colleagues? And then we complement that with professionals and experts from specific industries and fields to help us understand what's a day in the life of that world today. Marketing, communications, nonprofits, high tech, etc. So if you go on our website, 40plusdc.org, you'll see the forward schedule of programs that we have each Monday morning, except for holidays, so we won't be here on Labor Day. And so you'll be able to see, and if something sparks your interest or aligns with the kinds of things you're looking for, please come and join us. And again, tell your friends. We have a different configuration on Mondays. It's more chairs, so we have about 30 or 40 people here with us each week, and it's a great environment. Always free, always open to the public. And then the core of 40 Plus, the heart of the organization, and what we've been accomplishing for close to 65 years, is a comprehensive career transition skills training course. As I mentioned, I'm a graduate from 2015. We have many other graduates in the room as well. And in this program, it's a very intense 4 weeks, about 45 hours of classroom instruction. It's held just next door through that wall, where by design, we keep the classes very small, no more than 7 students at a time. You engage with a volunteer faculty of 25 facilitators, each of whom have been in your shoes, they've been through the course before, and now they're choosing to give back as volunteers. We welcome people from all stages of the process, whether you are 1 week in transition, 1 month, 1 year, or longer. And we walk through every part of that process, helping you with your resume, your interviewing skills, your social media, especially LinkedIn, the power of informational interviews, and developing a strategy that's going to help you land faster. At the conclusion of that 4-week program, the cohort of the class, 6 or 7 people, stays together in what we call a job club. And that's an opportunity to continue to engage, to continue to network, and to continue to be accountable to one another as you all complete the job search process. Job clubs typically meet on a weekly basis, perhaps here or at Starbucks or other convenient location based upon where the students are located. Because at the end of that 4 weeks, and I'm looking at some of our recent graduates to give me confirmation on this, you know each other very well. You've spent a lot of time together. You've talked about sometimes difficult issues, shortcomings, or areas that you're concerned about in your process and in your career. And so those people are uniquely able to help you stay on track, follow through, maintain your accountability, and that club stays together until everybody lands. And so sometimes they'll start with 6 or 7, and in a month or 2, they'll be down to 3 or 4, 2 or 3, and everybody stays together because we are peers helping peers. We're here for each other. We offer content, community, and connections. So enough from me. If you have any questions about 40 plus, so I would like members of the board of 40 plus or other active volunteers to raise your hand so you know who else to seek out if you have questions about our organization. So we'll have more opportunities for networking after our program. But you're not here to hear me. We're very pleased that our speaker has joined us today, a colleague of another active volunteer, Gina Manley. Gina, thank you very much for recruiting our speaker, Adib Sabree. Adib has more than 20 years in training and career development and counseling, with 12 years of progressively responsible planning and development in learning programs. Among his major achievements, he designed a corporate university for the tax office of a major U.S. city and made strategic use of the individual development plan in a performance management system. He has a master's degree in career and human resource development from the Rochester Institute of Technology, where he also received an Executive Leader Award for Achievement. Among his professional qualifications include numerous certificates and certifications, including expertise in Myers-Briggs, DISC, and MCI. I'm going to let him describe what this one is. All right? So please join me in welcoming our guest, Adib Sabree. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you, and thank Gina and those who made making this possible. Actually, I was kind of excited about doing this until I learned just before we got started that they are recording this thing.
Yes.
And so that takes it to a different level for me. So if I'm a little nervous, it's because I haven't had to do that in a long time. But thanks for the invite, and I hope that for the next hour you will find this worth your time. As you saw in my bio, I've been around a long time, and I've been doing this thing for a long time, and I've been around long enough to know and relate to the period of time when soft skills were things that just weren't done, right? I mean, it was always subject to the discretionary budget, right? It was always the hard skills that were at the top of the list, right? Hard skills you had to take, technical skills. If the government came out with new regulations, you wanted to get in compliance right away, right? If accounting, a firm issued a new software, you wanted to make sure that your people got to know the ins and outs of this new software. So hard skills has always been easy sell, for those of us in learning and development. It was the soft skills that was the hard product. And so emotional intelligence was, for the most part, until recently, was considered one of those soft skills things. And we had to make our case before we could get companies and organizations to accept the reality that emotional intelligence is in fact a hard skill. It is measurable, and we can show results from it. And so now, emotional intelligence is now put into the category of not option anymore, but for some executive programs, it's required. From some leadership executive programs in our universities, they are requiring a workshop, a course, some study in emotional intelligence. So I was happy to hear that you all were very interested to know a little bit about emotional intelligence, which is what we're going to do in an hour. It's a much longer program, but in the hour we're going to introduce you to some things. And at the end, I hope that you will know a little bit more about emotional intelligence than you did when you came in. Now, I can't guarantee you that, but we're going to try. So we're going to try to make this interactive. There's some things that we're going to have you to do, and feel free as we go along to ask questions. I pace a lot. I try not to pace out because now so that it kind of gives people going back and forth. So I'll try to stand still, and I'll take questions as we go along. So what I want to do first, though, is that we're going to get you going, get you involved in this from the start. I have some things I want to pass out, and so if you would just take a set of these and just make sure that everybody gets one. And in your packet, you will see okay. In your packet, you will see something that looks like this. So if you want to put that on top first.
Anybody missing one?
Yeah, it's called the mood meter, right? Yours may not be as pretty as mine. Mine is in color.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Okay, all right, everybody's got it? Okay, here's what I want you to do with that. Without sharing with your neighbor, I want you to, on that grid, I want you to indicate where you are in terms of energy, which is, as you can see, is the left side on the vertical axis, from 1 to 10. And on the emotion scale, the horizontal axis at the bottom, from 1 to 10, and where the two intersect. Okay? And when you find that intersection, I want you to circle and then put an S. Okay? Put an S in that circle. So find out where you are, connect the two, and to help you, so that you get some idea where we're going with this, if you look up here for a second, it'll give you some idea as to what the emotional language that goes along with where you are on that scale. Okay? Any questions about that? So don't be influenced by this, other than the fact that it will just help you with defining where you are right now. Okay? So you want to draw a circle where the two intersect. So if you are 5 in terms of energy, and in terms of emotions, you might be a 3. So down here, so you will intersect. You put a circle and put an S in that circle. Okay. All right. Everybody's done that. Okay. Don't share it with your neighbor. Okay. Now. Okay. Good. Now I want you to pick somebody closest to you. Without talking, I want you to determine where you think that person is on that scale. Draw a circle and put a B on that. Just put a B in that second circle. That's going to be your buddy. So try to pair off. All right. And we don't want to talk. We don't want to share. Okay. Yes. Don't talk. Do not talk. Do not talk. Just pair with somebody and then decide where you think that person is on that scale. And you could flip it over, turn it over. We don't want to share it right now. Okay? Do you have a partner? Oh, you got a partner. Okay. So there should be a partner. Or if you have 3, it's okay. If it's a threesome, that's fine. That'll work. Okay? Okay.
Do we share with the person?
Not yet.
Oh, we don't share?
No, you're not sharing. You're just going to, just going to make a determination based on whatever. Okay? Everybody done?
Yeah.
Okay. With your partner, compare. Compare your S with their B and vice versa. And tell me how close you came. This sounds good. This is good discussion. We'll get a chance to do some more right now. Let's call it. Let's do time out right now. This was good discussion. I was listening, and some of you were talking and saying some of the things that I thought I would hear. So for my first question is, how many people in here got it exactly right? How many of you got your partner exactly right?
Oh, did I get it?
You got your partner exactly right. You all were okay.
Yeah,
Good.
very close.
Anybody else?
I rated
I'm sorry.
Paula very nicely located a pen for me, and because of the energy, she immediately got up and let me go find a solution to this. I put her at the 10-10, and she put herself at 10-9.
Okay.
So,
And I'm sorry, you were saying, I'm sorry, your name?
I was close for her.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was pretty close. I
Okay.
was one number away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was anybody really way off? No? Okay. It's okay if you were. It's just it's not a test, okay? What we do this for a couple of reasons. First of all, we try to get you to do something that we don't do very often, at least in the business world. We don't talk about emotions in the business world. All right? What do we say? Has anybody been around long? And it's okay if you admit it. Has anybody been around long enough to remember when they used to say what about emotions? There's a popular phrase that you can say all the time. I'm sorry?
women shouldn't be emotional. Don't be emotional.
Check emotions.
Don't be emotional.
Oh, yeah,
There's a
check
catchphrase that we used to say all the time,
That's it.
right?
Control.
Mr. Gentleman.
No, I'm sorry?
I said check your emotions at the door.
That's it. That's it. Remember? Check your emotions at the door, right? And what we've learned about emotional intelligence is there's no such thing as making a decision without emotions. It just doesn't happen, right? And the more you understand that, you'll believe that as well. So my whole purpose for doing that exercise is to get you to get a feel for what it's like how difficult it is for us to really judge and figure out where people are in their emotions. And yet, as difficult as it is, it's very important, because what I'll show you in a few minutes is that it includes data and information that helps us communicate, right? And the first step in the model that I'm going to show you later on is what they call the identity step, right? You've got to get it right from the beginning, right? Where you are emotionally and where you think the other person is, right? It's not easy, but the information that we get from that helps us to establish good relations, and it helps us to get things done in the workplace. And that's why I said you find in some of the top business schools and executive leadership executive leadership training, you'll find that emotional intelligence is now part of the curriculum. Okay, so what we're going to do today, I'm going to give you a couple of definitions of emotional intelligence, and you may have to write some of it down. Excuse me, I tried not to give you too much. I'm trying to save someone environment because they have lots of paper. Yes. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, and so we're going to give you a definition of emotional intelligence, a couple of them that we think is pretty good definitions of what I call working definitions. We're going to give you some facts on DI in the workplace, right? Because that's the important piece. That's the piece that we really want to know about and why it's so important. We're going to give you some facts that have been studied. And I'm going to show you a model. I was going to show you a video. We couldn't get the sound going, so we're not going to show you the video, but I'm going to give you the link to the video, and so you can watch it in your leisure. And it will talk a little bit about about emotional intelligence and the model that we're going to be using. Okay, so we can get started with this. I think most of us are familiar with Daniel Goleman, emotional intelligence. In fact, someone was telling me earlier, prior to the start, that they actually bought. Was it this book that you? Was it
Hardback.
Okay, yeah. And he's done a number of written a number of other articles He's been interviewed by several people. This is when it was really brought to the forefront, okay? The whole idea of emotional intelligence has been around for a long time, and some strains of emotional intelligence you will see if you're familiar with the Johari window, for example, Covey's 7 Habits, Maslow's theory, okay? When you understand emotional intelligence, you see some strains of emotional intelligence through those concepts. Right? And when you see the model, I think most of you will probably say, that does sound a little familiar. Okay. So, any questions so far? All right.
When was that Time magazine article? Is that recent and old?
No, this is an old one. This is it doesn't have the date on it, but it was back in the time, back in '97. So when Daniel Goleman came out with his article. Yeah. Okay. These guys, Salovey, Caruso, and Mayer, developed work. Actually, they had actually worked with Goleman for a while, developing this whole concept and idea of emotional intelligence. Goleman went public, and like I said, in the late '70s. These guys stayed behind and developed this thing that we call the mesquite, the test that I was certified in, that you saw at the beginning with behind my name. And they actually framed this definition of emotional intelligence that nearly all of the other instruments that you see out on the market will have some aspects of this. In fact, it will almost follow this, but you're using a different language. Okay? These guys did the groundwork, they did the research, and they wrote a couple of books. And as I said here, there are folks who think that this is the gold standard, and this is their definition of emotional intelligence. Okay? When you go to the website that I'm going to give you a little bit later, you'll be able to see this again. But they're the leaders initially in emotional intelligence and developed the whole test. Here's another definition, and I like this definition because it's easy for you to actually conceive and understand without all of the verbiage. If you're like me, you're kind of visual. It really is where action, feeling, and thinking converge. Really, it really is that simple, right? They put these other domains in there, the cognitive development, emotional development, and behavioral development, but really, it's a point at which these three things come together. They call it fusion. It's where they converge. That's kind of an overview or a quick view of understanding emotional intelligence. So what is emotional intelligence? And you don't go through the definition. This is a quick way of getting it. But as it says here, it's intelligence consciously choosing thoughts, feelings, and actions to create optimal relationships with yourself and others. I would say between yourself and others, but that's the definition. Okay? Any questions, folks? Okay. All right, so what do we know about emotions? When we look at success factors, those critical success factors that we hear about all the time in the workplace, the ones that you see that listed here, nobody argues with those, right? But what emotional intelligence does is that it takes it to a different level, and we'll show you how, through research and study, why that is the case, right? And here we talk about emotional intelligence being one of those factors that's nice to have. It helps to have when you're talking about critical success factors, right? Now, here's the result of a research that was done by the Hay Group. I think this was a 2009 study. Okay. Now and I want to show you, just point this out. I think you've seen it already. You'll see literature there. They'll go back and forth between EI and EQ. Okay, it's the same thing. Some organizations and some researchers prefer to still call it emotional quotient, and others call it emotional intelligence. So you see EI or EQ. It's essentially, it is exactly the same. Okay. So when you look at this, what jumps out at you? Are there any surprises? Is there anything that when you see this, can anybody relate to that?
that job performance is not a measurement someone is making or an evaluation they're making of you. It's how well you think you're doing your job or how well you're actually doing your job.
No, this is, well, I didn't read the entire study, so I can't tell you exactly how they did it. But what they're saying is that when they measure according to their, whatever instrument and tool they use, right, to measure emotional intelligence, this was their finding, right? Anybody surprised by any of that?
The question I have is, what's defined as a top performer? If you can have a lot of different metrics for that, for sure.
I'm sorry?
What's the definition of top performer?
Yeah,
I mean, is that the highest salary you earn, or is that,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, probably a whole
Yeah.
number,
Yeah.
yeah, exact number of metrics that make that up. Right. And I think what they're trying to show here is obviously that that there's something that separates, something other than technical skills and knowledge that separates top performers from others. And I think that's really what the bottom line here is. And in fact, Goldman, in his work that he did on emotional intelligence, he did this with international corporations. They surveyed 181 jobs at 121 companies worldwide, and discovered that two out of three abilities of success were related to this thing that we call emotional intelligence, was some aspect of emotional intelligence, including initiative, adaptability, persuasiveness, and so forth. And so the whole point there from their research is to show that there is some importance to emotional intelligence measurable in the workplace. And you've probably seen this before, and if you haven't, it's kind of dramatic when you think about it, right? Now, there is some discussion, okay, around this, meaning that some researchers and practitioners look at this and they have different interpretations of it, okay? In fact, some folks have argued that that this emotional intelligence piece, this illustrates that the emotional intelligence piece is much more important, 2 times, 3 times more important than IQ. Okay. But the data or the research is out on that, and that in using that terminology, right? Because what some people who said that, what they were doing was they were taking anything that wasn't related to a technical skill, right, and dumping it into this domain, that the soft skill domain that they refer to, and they called it emotional intelligence, right? What they all agree on is that it is important, and in most cases it's more important than IQ, or whether it's 2 times as important, 3 times. So, and I say that to you because when you start to read some of the literature, and you look at some of the things on YouTube, you will hear them use that language. They will say emotional intelligence is 3 times more important, and that the research doesn't support that. Right? The scientific research doesn't support it, because a lot of things that they dump into this category that they call emotional intelligence is neither emotion nor is it intelligence. So just so that you'll understand that, right? The point is, and they all agree, is that emotional intelligence is a greater part of our success in the workplace than IQ, but they can't put a measure on that. Okay? So that's if there's any one thing that we want you to draw from that, that is the point. Okay, any questions about that?
I have
Yes,
a
ma'am.
comment.
Okay.
And to me, what this indicates is it's important to have, to be astute and knowledgeable, but one person can't do the work of many people. That's why I think my gut feel is that emotional intelligence is very important, because you do work through others, through the help of others. And so you can be intelligent and yet not be able to achieve nearly as much as if you can get people to work together.
Yeah, and in fact, I wanted to, thank you, there was I brought an article, and I'm always reading articles, so there was an article that's in this magazine called Rockman it's a management magazine, and they were questioning Goldman, okay, about this very thing that we were talking about. And Goldman, I'm just going to read some of this for you, because again, I was trying to save my paper, so I didn't put a lot of it out there. But here's his response to that question. The question that we put to him was this. He says, when it comes to excelling on the job, which is more important, EI or IQ? That was the question that they put to Dan Goldman. And this is in part his response. He says, there's widespread misconception that I favor emotional intelligence above regular intelligence. He says, to be clear, I don't. I think they're both extremely important. Every leader must have a very high level of intelligence and human expertise. But I've talked to countless people who do corporate level recruiting, and they tell me that when executives fail, okay, this is key, when executives fail, it is invariably the case that they were hired for intelligence and expertise, but they were fired for lack of emotional intelligence.
Right. Right.
Right. So they asked the question. They did a follow-up question to him. They says, okay, then of those things that we call emotional intelligence, in your experience, which aspect of emotional intelligence do they tend to fail in? And there's a long answer to it, but the bottom line was there are different domains, and he says the number one area where they fail is self-awareness. The number one area in which they fail is self-awareness. And this is research, and Goldman's done research on, as I said, on international corporations as well. Okay. Any questions, folks, before we go? So again, all we want to say with this is that it's hugely important, and in many cases it is more important, but just don't buy, this is my commentary, don't buy into the thought that it's 2 times, 3 times, there's just no support for that contention. There really isn't. People say that, but there's no support for it that I've read. Okay. Emotional intelligence, and we can talk about some of the things that emotional intelligence relates to. And I think that one of those is that we fail to keep in mind is the third bullet, where it says, being mindful of what your body is experiencing and labeling an emotion will help you begin to understand the connection between emotions and health. And one of the things that you have in your handout is a list of emotional, what I call the emotional vocabulary. You have a list of what they call primary and secondary emotions, and very often and because we're not literate, in this language, we're not very good at identifying how we're feeling or how others are feeling. That's why at the very beginning I said, if you're having some kind of struggles and where you are on this chart, I showed you the chart with the language, right? Because very often we use language, and I'll get to it in a moment. We use language that is really not indicative. You also have in your handout a thing about like emotions in the workplace, okay? And studies show that the 2 major emotions in the workplace are what? What do you think, off the top?
Anger,
Yeah. Of the major emotions, anger and believe it or not, happiness. But when you look at the bar chart, anger is way up there and happiness is down there. Right? Now, there are lots of reasons for that. Some of it's real, but a lot of it is because we don't have the language, we don't have the vocabulary to express really what we're saying. For example, when emotional intelligence talks about anger is defined as a situation in which you as an individual have felt what? Wrong. There's some kind of injustice.
Yeah.
Right? That is the true definition of anger in the world of emotional intelligence. But we very often confuse it with what?
Frustration.
Frustration. And what is frustration? Frustration is a situation where it's not a process or procedure, it's not clear. There's confusion, right? So whether you use the language or your direct report, your subordinate comes in and they said frustrated, when you listen to what they're saying, if you understand the language, the vocabulary, you'll be able to determine if it's anger or if it's frustration. Why is that important?
Because maybe you can deal with it.
That's right. What you tell Bob to do to handle a situation that's really, in reality is a situation based on anger, will be different if it was one that was based on frustration. Right? And I can say more about that, but I got a case study I'm going to give you, and I don't want to give it away. But that's exactly right. Right? And so when you see that, they list all these feelings, emotions that we have as a workplace, but more often than not, the two major ones is anger and happiness. But anger almost always went out, unfortunately. The other thing we know about emotions is that it is universal. Right? And if you have ever been to a place, like I have once, where you didn't speak the language, right? And all I could do was smile and read the words off of that David wrote down for me to say. I was in Paris a few years ago, don't know any French. It was a solo trip. And a good friend of mine wrote these words down and he gave me the phonetic pronunciation. He said, say this, say this, say this. Okay, so I did that. And I got along very well, but I think that most of it was because I just showed that I was glad to be there. Right? I mean, people were offering me help when I wasn't even asking. They could tell that I was looking for help, but they were offering me help because they understood what that meant, right? I mean, I didn't go around many like that, but I mean, I think I was pleasant, right? But the research shows that of all the major emotions, there's some universal acceptance of these kinds of emotions, these kinds of expressions. I'm sorry?
They also like it when you try to speak in French.
Yes, yes, that's true.
Shows empathy.
That's true. That's true. There was one international speaker who would go around and give lectures to leaders, executive leaders around the world, and he says that he tells all of his executive leaders, he says, you can go any place in the world, and if you know how to say two things, you will never have problems. Anybody got an idea what they are?
Thank you.
Please and thank you. You guys are smart. Okay. Yes. He said if you learn how to say please and thank you, and those are happy things, right? I mean, he says you will be successful. And he says that Brian Tracy, if you've ever heard of Brian Tracy is that guy. He was a guru in executive leadership back in the 90s, right? 80s and 90s. And that was his mantra. If you look, you can go any place in the world, and if you can say please and thank you in their language, you will have success. Okay. And obviously, and this goes without saying, and that is that there are individual and group differences. Some of us, as we saw in our little exercise at the beginning, how some of us were better at, excuse me, some of us were better at picking up on emotions than others. And what you might find, I don't know, unemotional or not important can be to somebody else, right? And to be an emotionally intelligent person, that's part of what you are to be able to do, right? To know that just because it doesn't impact you that way, that it's not wrong if it impacts the other person that way or some other way, right? That's a sign of an emotionally intelligent person, right? So Bob comes into your office and you should not say to Bob, well, you shouldn't feel that way. The emotionally intelligent person says, hears you out, right? And understands that for Bob, that means something to him, and you have to, and in order to be effective, you need to validate that feeling, right? You have to validate that feeling. You're not giving him justification for what he has said or done, but you're validating that feeling. One of the things that, and this is something to remember about emotional intelligence, it will tell you that, it will never tell you that you should not feel what you feel. Because emotional intelligence says you can't stop what you feel. It's what you do with that feeling, right? It's that, remember that triangle? It's the action part. That's why they come together, right? So when your subordinate comes in and he or she is angry and feeling all frustrated, the last thing you want to say is that you shouldn't feel that way. Right? You have to hear them out. That's the sign of an emotionally intelligent man. Okay?
Quick question.
Yes.
Is there any difference between EQ and empathy then? Like if you're empathic reasoning, if you just, I mean.
It is. There's no difference, but it is a part of emotional intelligence.
Okay.
Being able to show empathy, exactly. Right? And that's one of those, it falls into one of those domains of social, some instruments called it social intelligence. You might see that term, tossed around, right? But yes, exactly right. Right. Yes, sir.
Yes, I've been to seminars where we were told that when you're meeting with someone and the situation involves negative criticism, that you should never use the word I just used, you. In other words, if you have to tell someone, your job performance isn't that good, or if an employee made an error, the day before, don't use the word you, because you can be inferred as a personal affront, and people automatically put up defense mechanisms. Do you? I guess my question is, do you ascribe to that belief, that practice regarding the word you? You can be a dangerous word, in other words.
Yeah, I've heard that too. What you're going to see when we do this, when we go through this exercise is coming up next, is a part of the model is the understanding of emotions, right? And if you know, and that the use of a certain terminology is going to elicit an emotional response or reaction that is not conducive to the situation, the intelligent person, they say, would not do that.
I have a comment on that.
All right. Now, and let me just finish that. So, in terms of the use of "you," I mean, I'd have to see the actual situation to but I've heard that, and I don't know. I've supervised people for years, and I don't know if I've ever gotten any pushback on that or not. I don't know. I don't. Anybody got? I'm sorry. You want to share something?
Yeah, my comment is that this is good that you have this emotional vocabulary so people can articulate how you feel. You is not bad if you're getting an Academy Award or you just won the lottery and you're getting $600. You might not seem so pleasant if it's you're not doing a good job or you did something that may have caused loss of profit or injury or a hazardous situation. So you is a neutral word. It's always about how we label it and the perspective. But there's nothing wrong with the word you. Somebody say, you just won $6 million lottery, you're going to be happy. You're not going to be offended.
Yeah.
So you is neutral.
Is there another word that they suggested or another way to address?
You mean when it involves criticism?
Yeah.
Yeah, like for instance, if the employee committed an error of some sort, the boss or the supervisor can come over and say, did we drop the ball? Okay, then you becomes the we. Okay, to take the onus off and also to reduce the chances of the employee becoming automatically the D word, as in defensive. Okay?
We actually, we've done workshops around that. I don't, on supervision and we covered this whole thing of what they call constructive criticism. I just don't remember ever having to address that myself.
So if it's the other way around, if a person is addressing, say, the superior, and they need to go you negative, do you throw in the we with that? I mean, how might you?
That's a good question.
You
Yes.
just say we have a problem here.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
But we
Somehow
don't-
we're not connecting,
Yeah.
there's a lack of communication between us. Because it's,
So still go
you know,
we with
it's
it.
still a communal thing
Right,
because you're in the
that's
same
different.
space.
Mhm.
So you can't,
Yeah, there are ways to get around the word you, both positively and negatively.
I think that anything that you learn about how to be, when you become aware of how much emotions is involved in the situation, the more you can do to ensure that the emotion does not break down communication, then if that's what you do, I mean that works, right? And I said I've not heard that, but if in your environment that's an understanding, then and you as an emotionally intelligent manager, you would avoid doing that, right? And when we do this in certain, and there are other things, for example, when you're giving, they tell you really when you're giving corrective, they say something, don't sit behind the desk, sit at a table. I mean, so there are those kinds of things that I've heard and I've used in workshops over the years. So there's some precedence for that. I just haven't heard that particular one. But the whole idea is to diffuse the situation so that you can have emotion. Emotion does not get in the way of bringing about, of having the communication that you want to have.
I just want to
Right.
add one thing to what I was saying, Kate. It works real well with children too. It's not your problem, it's our problem.
Right.
So
Right.
it's,
Make it more collective, in other words.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
use collective words
right, so it's
instead of singular words, especially.
all about
the-
human relations.
Right,
It's not
exactly.
about, it's not the opposition. It's the we, the oneness, the big picture.
Right.
That part is more like focusing on the behavior instead of the person.
Instead of the
So you
person.
wouldn't say,
Yeah.
you are lazy.
Right.
You would say, these actions
So-
result in these issues.
Issues, right.
So not attacking the
Right,
person,
right.
making them aware that this behavior
You're attacking the behavior
is what needs to be.
without using the word you.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and exactly, those are the kinds of constructs we
Right.
develop in our workshop around
Yeah.
supervision and what we call constructive criticism. Yes, ma'am.
I would also say that you can learn from your employees how they like to be praised and how they like to receive criticism, positive or negative criticism. And if you work with your team and you know their preferences, there is less possibility that you are going to make that mistake. So actually our boss, he was always encouraging us to give him heads up. And he would say, okay, if I want to praise you, what would be the best way for me to do that?
Mhm.
If I want to correct your behavior, what would be the best way for me to do
Sounds
that?
like you said in one of my workshops.
Yeah. Actually, went to your workshop. I don't know, but it was very
No,
effective.
but that's right. That
It
is
was
the
very
kind.
effective, and he was very effective.
Yeah, right. Okay, at this point, folks, so any questions, any more comments before we move to one more thing here, another aspect? Any questions? Okay, at this point, we're going to show you a video. We couldn't get the audio. Okay, sorry about that. But I want you to go to the website, go to YouTube, and type in emotional intelligence, and you're going to see a plethora of things. But you want to look at it's almost a 3-minute video, and it's by a guy named Brendan, Brendon, and I'm not sure how you pronounce his last name, but I'll spell it for you. It's G.
Does it work?
G-O-U, yeah, we couldn't get the,
Do we want to show it on the screen now?
no,
Okay.
that's fine. G-O-U-V-E-I-A is his name. And it's,
Oh, Gouveia.
I'm sorry?
Gouveia.
Gouveia, okay, I wasn't
There you
sure,
go.
didn't want to butcher it. It's
Gouveia.
G-O-U-V-E-I-A,
Yeah.
okay? And you'll see a quick video. It's a video that I was going to show you that was going to introduce this next part of our workshop. Now, okay, so the next part of our workshop, and you see a handout on that, so if you want to pull that out, you should have a handout that looks like this. Again, I'm sorry it's not in color, but so you have black and white. Okay, and this four-part model, as I said, was developed by Mayer, Soliday, and Caruso, and it's referred to, and they developed this test that we call the Mesquite, and that's the emotional intelligence test that they discovered, that they developed, and the test is based on this model, okay? And so we're going to cover this. We're going to go through this. You also have a handout.
I'm sorry, you're standing in front of number 3.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. And you also have a handout that that shows the model, that shows the four parts of this model, and on the back side you see a list of questions for each of the steps in that model. And these questions are designed to just help you understand better what goes on in each of those models. Okay, so you'll see on the front. Oh, you'll see on the front. It looks like this. It says on the front EI skills.
Okay.
Okay. And it defines what each of the abilities are. We're going to go through some of that now. And just to be sure, so that, and this is how it helps you apply this on a practical basis. On the back are questions that relate to each of those steps. Okay. So you can actually between this and the questions on the back, you can actually apply this on a daily basis. Right? And we ask folks to do that. In fact, what we do, we ask folks to take this, and I wish it wasn't in color. We ask them to hang this in your office, in your cubicle, and notice how many questions you get from visitors when they enter your office. Right? And we say, just try it for a month, right? And you see how many questions you get from that, and actually it's a way of reminding you, right? How to apply this.
Is that guy pushing a rock in management? What's he doing?
That's a good question. You know what? I don't know. I haven't seen.
Trying to manage anger.
I'll have to ask him. But it looks like he's pushing a rock up the hill. Yeah. Okay. So the first part of the model is identify. Okay, and it says identify emotions and why this is important. The reason is because according to this model, the whole process begins with correct identification, with accurate identification. And this is not something that comes very easily, as we saw from the very beginning. It's not easy. It takes some practice. First of all, some background, some knowledge, and then it takes some practice. But it's critical, and it is the first step. And it says it's very critical in building a successful workplace environment. It is first of all, and it's primary. Okay, the better the read, the more accurate your response. Right? So take a look at this face. All right. And tell me what you see. Down the left side is listed emotions. And based on that face, the question is, do you see any of these emotions in her face? None, perhaps, or present. Is there anger, sadness, happiness, disgust, fear, or surprise? Okay, take a second to look, and I'm going to give you a chance to see how good you are at this. Everybody ready? Okay, all right. So let's see. Let's begin with Martha. Martha, let's start at the beginning. Anger. Do you see, what box would you check? None, perhaps, or present?
Perhaps.
Perhaps?
Not this strong.
Okay. Let's see what the survey says. Okay. Rebecca. Sadness.
Present.
Survey says. Okay. So put it back here. Okay. Jackie. Happiness.
None.
None. Survey says none. Disgust.
Maxine?
No, free.
Present.
Farson. What do you think?
Present.
Disgust. Present? Okay. Fear. Gerald.
I would say present.
Present? Okay. And let's go to Lori.
Oh, me?
Yes.
Surprise?
Surprise.
Perhaps.
Perhaps. Okay. Not easy, is it? Right? And this is the first, according to this model, this is identifying is first. The model is hierarchical. That's one of the words I can't say very well.
Hierarchy.
That word. Okay. Right? But it begins with identifying. Right? It's not easy. It's something that we really have to practice on. Okay? So that's identifying. The next part of the model is using emotional intelligence. And the question is, why is this important? And we list some reasons there, and to a gentleman's question earlier about empathy, and you can see the second bullet talks about empathy. Right? And so we read this. Can somebody wants to read this little test for us?
Which emotion would be the most useful to have someone agree to help you with a difficult and time-consuming project?
Okay. So you needing some assistance. You want some assistance on a project that's not only difficult and time-consuming. What kind of emotion are you going to display?
Happiness.
Okay. Why not anger?
No one
I'm
wants to be
an angry person.
And it's not productive. That's not a productive emotion.
Okay. Challenging.
Can be.
Okay. Because how many times have we gone into someone else's office with a smile on our face about something that really got us going, and say, "Can you help me with this?" Right? We don't do it. We go in and you will not believe what they got me doing now. Right? We do it all the time. But yet we know this. We know that in reality, that's what works. But we don't practice it very much. Right? So we try to gain the support and the empathy of others by, getting they're hoping that they would sympathize with us when we go in frustrated and angry, right? Okay. Third part of the model is understanding emotions, and the last part says it predicts behavior. How does that? How is it that emotions can predict behavior? And it's something that we do all the time, but we don't think about it in these terms.
You project, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Okay.
Positive leads to positive, negative leads to negative thoughts and actions.
Okay. Okay. You're onto it. You're almost there. But let's answer this question, and it will it will make it a little bit clearer. Okay? A client feels frustrated, repeatedly asks you for information. He's getting annoyed. You ignore the request. The client feels what? Who said anger? Said anger? Okay, Scott.
Yeah.
Why anger?
Well, he's already halfway there with being annoyed, and the fact that you're ignoring the request is just feeding and feeding and feeding, and that's gonna.
That's how emotions is predictable,
Yeah.
right? So that previous slide, when we said you can predict, you know that at some point this person is going to explode. And that's why we say, contrary to popular belief, emotions is very logical. Right? There's nothing haphazard about it, right? And the reverse is true. We know how to bring that anger down, or we know how to bring that disgust down, right? We pretty much got a pretty good idea of what we can do to mitigate an intense situation, right? Because we have this intuitive understanding of emotions, right? And all we're saying in this model is that it's something that we need to and should become more conscious of. Okay, and somebody said anger, so you were right. Okay, and the last part of the model is managing emotions. Okay. I've done that a few times. Right? The second, the third bullet. So how many of you have been that third bullet? But somebody says, no, don't do that now. Right? So in managing emotions, and this is managing your emotions and the emotions of someone else. Because like we said in the last example, you can manage the other person's emotions by diffusing a situation that's relatively out of hand. Right? So it's managing your emotions, it's managing the other person's emotions as well. So when we say managing emotions, it works both ways. So look at this. Okay? So the client keeps asking you for more information about the same project. So the question is, how effective would each of these actions be in addressing the client's concerns? So take a second look at that, and I'll give you a chance to respond. How effective? So this is the situation. Okay. These are possible actions. Okay. How effective would these actions be? Not at all effective, a little, or a lot.
Could you read out what the
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Could you read what the responses are? 'Cause we
Okay, I'm
don't
sorry.
read them.
Okay, the first response is you address each of the issues in order of their importance. Okay, that's one action you might take. The other action is you would find out what is making the client anxious. Okay? And the third option or possibility is you would demonstrate that the concerns are unfounded. So those are the possible responses to this client's concern. So the question is, how effective would they be? Not at all, a little, or a lot. Okay? Everybody got it? Okay, let's start with Asha.
Messaging the issues in order of their importance, it would help a little.
A little? Okay. Let's see. Gina.
Find out what is making the client anxious. A lot.
And Craig.
If their concerns are unfounded,
Craig, you just killed us on the third.
The thing is, you would do all of those things. You might
Yeah.
do them in that order.
Right, right. And our whole idea is to get you to think about what the addressing the emotions in the situation. None of these are wrong in themselves, right? But we're talking about in terms of effectively dealing with the emotions in the situation, and that's really what we're looking at here. Okay. Okay. So let's look at this. We're going to put it all together in this situation, and just tell us of the 4 parts of the model that you can see up here. Okay. Which of those would apply to each of these situations? Okay. And it may be that more than one might apply, depending on how you interpret it. Okay. There are some preferences, of course, but there are, and we would stick with the preferences. But you might have some. Every time I do this, some people come up with some different things. Oh, okay, I didn't think about that. So maybe you're right. Okay. So situation number 1. Well, actually, this is one situation, but we're just breaking it down so that you could see how, in a given situation, this model might apply. Okay, and how you might apply it in a given situation. So this one, you can see your boss is in a negative mood. Where would we put that? Identify that. That's an easy one, right? You realize that as a result, she or he is very unlikely to be open to a discussion of your promotion. Understand? You conclude that she or he is in a bad mood and wisely attribute it to her overall pattern of ups and downs.
Understand.
I'm sorry?
Understand.
Okay, anybody else? Everybody was understanding? Okay. You decide to take the frustration and leverage its power, the power of the frustration, to polish your pitch in time for the mid-year performance discussion.
Manage.
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 So this again, this whole idea was just to show you how in a given situation we use emotional intelligence on a daily basis, and there again is the model. Now, so that's the end of the presentation. How much time do we have?
We're right at time.
Okay.
But folks have questions. We can have a questions.
Okay, we can do questions. There is you had well, let me just do this. You have a case study. Do you have a case study in your? Okay. Yeah, managing your emotions. Yeah, case study. Okay, we're not going to. Okay, that's a tough one. We're going to run. That's going to run us over time. But here's what I want you. But here's what I was going to do with this. It was actually a trick. It was actually a trick that I was going to pull on you guys, right? I was going to have you read this case study, and then ask you. And typically, what we do is break up in groups and ask you to address it, right? And you go through all this stuff. You form your groups in here. Everybody comes in, and everybody starts doing problem solving. And when you're done, and I've done this for years, no group yet has figured out the trick until I told them. Everybody goes into problem-solving mode because that's what we do, right? They forget that we're talking about emotional intelligence. The answer to the question to this problem-solving, this case study, is the very first sentence of the next to the last paragraph, where it says John walked into your office and is visibly. Right? You see that paragraph next to the last paragraph. Guess what? That's where your discussion should begin. Because why?
That's where the emotions are.
That's where the emotions are. The emotions are nowhere else in that case study. It's almost at the very end. But the bottom line is, when you're addressing a situation that is emotional, if you go into problem-solving mode, you're gonna miss it. Until you address the emotion first, nothing else you say is gonna be heard.
Right.
They're not gonna hear it. No matter how profound it is, no matter how right it is, it's not gonna be heard. Emotional intelligence says that you have to deal with the emotion first. You have to address the emotion. Then you go into problem-solving mode. Okay. So that was the trick I was going to do, but we don't have to. Like Gina, you were gonna comment?
Okay, so I work in politics.
Yes.
I'm confronted by Trumpers, as I call them. So how do I deal with them without hitting them? Looking at and trying to be like using emotional intelligence.
You got a problem.
Yeah. The entire country has a problem, but yes.
Okay.
What is the problem?
We'll talk offline, Gina.
All right, one more question?
So-
We have one more question?
Yes, sir.
They say that IQ is where it is, and that you can like teach children about EQ and everything, but at our stage in life, how much are we set in our ways in terms of being able to learn this kind of stuff?
You can learn it. Emotional intelligence is a learned skill. Exactly.
No matter where you are.
No matter where you are, it's a learned skill. It's something like, I could be way off on this stuff, so those of you who know this stuff better than I do, you can correct me. I relate to it in my own thinking. It's like dyslexia, right? You will never become a non-dyslexic person, but you learn to cope and deal with it to the point where other people don't even know you have it, right? So that's kind of my answer to it. Okay, yes, ma'am, and then we're gonna.
Chair gets the last word.
Okay. Okay.
How aware are organizations nowadays in terms of, hey, you can teach this to people and they'll be able to get along better, they'll be able to produce better projects through better teamwork. Are organizations aware that there is a solution?
They have to be told. I mean, in fact, one of the things that when I did emotional intelligence workshops internally at NASA and other places that I worked, one of the things that I always said to them was that do not go back to your bosses, to your boss, and try to sell them on emotional intelligence. It's not going to sell. But if you tell them that I can spend less time dealing with conflict on my team if I had, and if my folks had these skills, your boss would give you attention. You got their attention. And that's the selling point, right? If you sell them on what it's going to do to help that manager, to help that supervisor do his or her job better. It's not emotional intelligence that you try to sell them on. Right? Good question. Thank you very much. Thank you, folks. I'm sorry we had to rush through it.
Thank you all for coming. On your tables, you have these half-sheeted surveys. We really need your feedback. We value it. That's how we created this, chose this program and reached out to Adib. It was based on the feedback that we got from other attendees that this was a topic you wanted to hear about. So please let us know. And our monthly drawing for July is open, for August. So somebody's going to win a $25 gift card, so it could be you. Okay, so you can drop those. We have a little bowl outside if you're interested. And again, please think about joining us on Monday mornings. Our September evening program, Gerald, is going to be about what?
It's going to be about opportunities in financial services. So I'm hoping, and my new boss will be attending and presenting, as well as a panel of 2 other graduates of our course that have gone into financial services. There is quite a bit of opportunity, and I hope that if you're looking for a job, you might be open to a career in financial services. I hope to see you in September.
Wonderful. September 7th, right?
September 7th,
Okay.
that's right.
Thank you all for coming. Enjoy the evening.